I'm here with Lifelines, and I'm getting an opportunity to talk to Dr. Sean Drake about the Sports Performance Institute. So super glad to be here. Thanks for being here.
Hey, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally. So let's just start at the beginning. Where did the idea of the Sports Performance Institute come from, and how long has it been before it's kind of come into fruition, and where is it going?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. I think for the last 3 years since we've had a rugby program, there's been talk of some type of sports initiative. If we look at campus, Dr. Chester, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Hickey, and Dr. McIntyre have been part of a sports management class. I think it's been going on for about 10 years. And Dr. McIntyre now being on campus, she's able to help out with the taping. But I think the idea of creating a full-on sports spectrum came in the last maybe year and a half. And so the coolest thing about it is that Dr. Kelly has a vision of making us the first chiropractic university.
Yeah.
And when we look at our rugby players, and specifically I'm speaking rugby right now because we do have hockey, we have soccer, and we have other sports such as softball as a club and things like that. But our rugby team really got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so their first year they get runner-up, right, in D3. The next year they end up winning D1. And now we have girls win the D2 national championship this year. Well, I think the thing is we started having people call and being like, hey, do you have a sports program? Because they see our high level of activity, right?
Totally.
But we didn't have a set program. And so where do those students go? Where do they go?
Yeah.
They don't go here, right?
They don't go here. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do you know where they go?
Well, I mean, you know,
Is there
when,
other chiropractic colleges that have
yeah.
sports?
So and that's the thing is like
Okay.
you have certain colleges outside of here
Yeah.
that's their thing.
Yeah.
They're the sports school,
Right.
and they advertise themselves as being that. I think the unique thing about our program and where we're going is that we put chiropractic first, and you have to understand chiropractic
Yeah.
to be a great sports chiropractor. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to teach you to be a good sports chiropractor, and then forget the chiropractic.
Right.
And that's the one thing that Life West has always said is that, hey, we produce great chiropractors. They go out in the world and they become great sports chiropractors. We're just making it more synergistic inside the model of saying, okay, we do need to know a few more things nowadays. We do need to understand how to communicate with coaches and strength coaches and different type of healthcare professionals to make sure that we give our students the best, ability to be competitive and, be holistic at the same time.
Yeah, and with the sports program that we've had so far, has that been happening? I mean, it seems like we've been kind of reaching out and, trying to integrate with athletes around our community through the sports program. This is the first time that it's really, focused in that direction.
Yeah, and it's a specialization. I think if you look at any model, there's specializations, whether it's pediatric, if it's maternal care, geriatric, maybe upper cervical, technique-based. And now we just have a lot of students that want to deal with athletes. And I think for me, when I looked at the opportunity to apply for it, I had to practice in LA. I actually met our team in Boise when I practiced there. They were there for their regionals, their first year competing.
Oh, cool.
And I got to go through them and I got to adjust them and work on their extremities and work on their function and making sure the kinetic chain was working. And they came out and they destroyed that team. And a lot of them were like, wow, we don't have that at Life West. And so we started talking then. I was like, you guys should start a sports program. And at that time, I don't think that it was in the cards and it wasn't really in the vision of that moment. But then as we started to see them get more and more successful, people started asking for it.
Yeah, and so what's your background? Obviously, you have a relatively unique skill set that you were able to utilize in Boise when you met the rugby players. How did you develop that skill set?
I got to admit it, I'm from Life University, so I graduated from there. Very proud to be an alumni of that college. I learned a lot from that college, and I did their master's in sports health science while I was there. And so the cool thing about being there is I got chosen as their first grad assistant for their master's program. And so I traveled with the rugby team for an entire year. I worked with Kennesaw State Sports Medicine as their chiropractor because we made a connection within that community. The other side of it too is being able to have a different outlook on the athlete instead of saying, hey, there's just an injury, looking for the cause and then bringing everything together.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the unique things, whether it was private practice that I was in or flying around and working with the National Volleyball League or the AVP or a bunch of different things that I'm doing now with Nitrous Circus and the Do Tour. I think it opens our door for our students to have that acceptance. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and talk a little bit more about that, because that's what I got really excited about when I heard about what you were doing, is like the access to athletes, getting to work with more athletes and helping develop people in that specific way for higher performance. What's the vision, or what are the tools that you're implementing on campus here in order to achieve that?
So the first thing we're doing is we're starting a Sports Performance Institute Club, and that any student on the campus can be a part of it. And actually, they just had their second meeting this past Monday. I'm really excited. We've got over 45 kids that are coming consistently.
So you guys meet every Monday?
Every Monday at 5 p.m. in room 110.
Cool.
And so that's the start for what we're doing right now.
Okay.
And so what I'm doing is I want to know from the students, what do they want, right? And what do they think chiropractic is, and what do they think sports chiropractic is? Mm-hmm. Because you ask one person and it's like, oh, it's adjusting. And you might ask another person and it's like, oh, it's complete diagnosis, looking at meniscus injuries or shoulder dislocations and then working in a medical model. You might ask somebody else and like, oh, I want to do rock tape or instrument-assisted soft tissue.
Right, or concussions.
Or concussions. Yeah. And so as you can see, it's a big, wide spectrum. And so the thing is I need to know where they're at. And then we get to develop the program off of that. The coolest thing is that's the elective. Then we have, or that's the club. Now we have the elective starting. So right now we're in the process of designing 2 electives. The first one's going to be very assessment-based, how to analyze an athlete or how to analyze a patient. Because when we say athlete, anyone's an athlete.
Totally.
Right?
All athletes.
And I think that so many people have seen this as a sports performance institute and like, well, why are we doing sports? Well, if we look at what people watch, or the biggest way to get out is sports. But it's human performance at the end of the day, period. It's like a mom that rolls her ankle while she's carrying groceries. Well, same mechanism of injury. Or if it's somebody in your community that's hurts their shoulder, same concepts. We just have 100 athletes on campus that are elite, 8 of which play for the USA. I get you to have a chance to work with them. We take a photo. That automatically gives you social proof when you get in your practice,
totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's my dream. So they'll go through that. They'll learn their emergency care, how to be on a team with ATCs, with the medical doctors. So you need to understand the system.
Yeah.
And so we're not always in our office when you're a sports chiropractor. You may be at a 5K, you may be on the beach at a volleyball tournament, you may be at the Super Bowl. Well, your role is not to go out there and check the person on the field. That's the ATC's job. Yeah. Understanding where we fit and being really good at what we do. So that's the elective portion. The third portion is the research. And I know you had asked me a question earlier about research, and right now we're designing what we want to do.
Okay.
And there's different parameters that we're looking at. And so when I look at research, we can look at research on pain. There's tons of research on pain, and chiropractic works with that. We know that.
Yeah.
Let's start doing research on physiology.
Yeah.
Let's start really looking at what the human body can do with a chiropractic adjustment. And so for me, it's going to be looking at physiological factors, looking at blood biomarkers. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying, we do an adjustment and they feel good. Let's look at the functionality. Let's look at heart rate, blood pressure, heart rate variability. Let's look at surface EMG. Let's look at thermals. The greatest thing about our campus is that we've got the best technology for X-ray, video fluoroscopy, and MRI.
Yeah.
So you mentioned concussion a minute ago.
Right.
So Scott Rosa and I are talking right now on creating the first ever implemented screen for concussion or head trauma using our stand-up MRI and X-ray.
Wow.
Creating an analysis program between some top upper cervical people, neurology professionals, and then a few chiropractors here on campus, and saying, let's do a kind of like a rehab, a certain amount of time rehab, re-X-ray, re-MRI, and if they're good to go, they're allowed to go back.
Yeah.
And so not just looking at a test of eye movement or looking at how they can actually function, let's make sure they're safe to go back.
Yeah.
Right? Then the other part of it is the outreach. So of course we need to get involved in our community. And the coolest thing about having the Institute is that it has instant credibility. So working with places like Stanford on brain injury, working with UCLA brain centers, working with alumni that have graduated and saying, you know what, can we send a student to you in their 4th part of their student clinic where they can actually be in your practice and see how it is to be in the real world. And that brings me to the 5th part, which is CE, so continuing education. So what we're trying to do is design specific sports chiropractic type continuing education that they're not getting from other groups where it's just science-based and, hey, this is what, if you have exercise physiology issue, what do we do? Instead saying, let's actually get your hands. Let's show you how to take care of an athlete.
Yeah.
And then have them get certified in some new type of certification program.
Beautiful. I mean, this to me at least, it sounds like an ambitious plan, right? Like those are all those 5 pillars are huge, each one of them by itself. So what do you need from students? What do you need from the college to really like make this happen? Like, how can we support this big vision that you
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that we understand it's Life West vision, right? So it's not mine.
Yeah.
I was just honored with the opportunity to come here and help create it and design it, right?
Yeah.
And then implement it. The biggest thing right now is patience.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at principle number 6, there's no process that requires time.
Yeah.
And so many times we have people that look at this and they're like, oh, well, it's not going yet, or why aren't we in the community, and why aren't we seeing this, and why haven't I been able to do that, and oh, there's an opportunity and I didn't get to do it. And so immediately they might feel hurt or they might be frustrated. In a sense of understanding that we're building a platform so that way all students are going to have that benefit. And yeah, it's not perfect right now.
Yeah.
If I said it was perfect, it would be awesome, but it's not. And so what we do is we take a step back and we say, okay, how are we going to implement this in the health center? Well, Dr. McIntyre and I are working very closely together on setting a tool to where this is our dream or my dream. And then the vision of the school is like, say for instance, you go through your extremity class, you go through advanced extremity, you do your clinic 1, your clinic 2 for student clinic, you go into your pod with your mentor doctor into clinic 1, right? So you're outpatient clinic 1 now. During that time, you're in the sports elective. So you've already gone through your other electives, you're in sports 1. Now you're on the field Tuesday or Thursday night at practice with our rugby team, our hockey team, our soccer team. If softball becomes an actual school sport, you're going to be there with them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then what happens is now you're there on Saturday at games. So you're underneath a doc and you're learning and you're seeing stuff. You're not the one adjusting, but you're getting the actual application of how to be at an event.
Yeah, and just the assessment by itself
Yeah.
would be great.
Exactly. And so to me, that's what separates us from other schools.
Yeah.
Because we can give that immediately. And then what they do is, as long as they do well in that class, they have an opportunity to transfer from their mentor doc's pod into what we would call the Sports Performance Institute.
Okay.
And so now they actually get to be the interns. And now they're taking care of our athletes, right?
Yeah.
And so during that S2, now they get to take the second elective. It's more sports specific. So now they get to learn how to work with runners, soccer players, different types of issues, and performance and injury. And then from there, now they go into their clinic 3, and now they're actually taking care of the public athletes that are coming into the SPI.
Right.
And then if they've got all their numbers, they can choose to stay in clinic 4 as a senior intern or some type of fellowship program, or they can go out into somebody's office down in San Diego or LA or here in Sacramento or across the bay in San Francisco and work with these people in their practice.
Yeah, so you mentioned, the people on campus who are really involved in this. Is there other faculty members per se that are also kind of involved in the overall vision?
So there's a committee that we created to help build the elective. And a vast amount of people showed up, and I was really honored and blessed. Dr. Ruck, if you don't know him, you need to get to know him. The guy's a genius when it comes to injuries that happen and how to stabilize them and help subluxation. But when Dr. Mark Thompson, phenomenal soft tissue guy. When it comes to the SPI and soft tissue, he's my go-to guy. And then you have Dr. Mavelli. She's amazing. She's got an awesome strength conditioning background. She does strong, fit competitions. She's in there helping with creating the actual elective 1 and elective 2. She's actually our women's soccer team coach. And so it's really neat to see her expertise in there come into play. So she's like my partner in crime, you would say. We get to bounce each other, off of each other. And then you got Bruce Chester, who's been able to help out as well. He's also the A's chiropractor here locally. So what's neat is that we utilize these opportunities because you have Bruce working with the A's. You know what I mean? You got Dr. Mavoli working with a lot of Cal athletes and a lot of lifters. You've got, whom else am I going down the list? Dr. Walton. He works with a lot of Cal athletes. So just on campus alone, we've got amazing faculty that are dealing with athletes in the community that we can bridge that gap and be like, hey, I'm going to send them over to the A's game and have them shadow for you. Or I'm going to send them over here. And they get that hands-on opportunity.
Nice. It sounds like this is still all kind of in the beginning stages, and the steps are kind of being laid out very consciously and very thoughtfully in order to make sure that the long-term vision is really attained. When do you think that the elective is going to start to be offered?
No, that's a great question. Fall.
Fall.
So the first one will be fall.
Awesome.
My goals, the second one will be winter.
Okay.
So we're going to build that tract, right?
Yeah.
So this fall, we're going before the elective board again this next week, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go through. be really excited about it. We've got some awesome docs working in there with it, and those students are going to get the best hands-on experience, I think, of any college.
Awesome.
All right, so I think the last thing I'd like to end on is when we look at SPI, we can look at what we do in thoughts, traumas, and toxins. Our thoughts, we work with the best coaches. We've got Adrian Ferris here on campus. You can't beat him as an athletic director or a coach. And what he puts into the brains of our athletes is probably the best coaching I've ever seen. Second, the traumas. So you've got SPI. So we're able to get these athletes back quicker. But our goal is to limit the injuries through actually doing prevention for performance. And then the toxins. We get to work with standard process. It's really a unique opportunity, I would say, to work with Charlie and work with John Knabb and say, hey, you know what? Let's look at these athletes individually, getting them on the right vitamins to supplement the food that they aren't getting in right now. For instance, when we went to Denver, we were able to use a certain supplement that's a very holistic approach, but also help them get oxygen to be able to carry within the red blood cell easier, along with the performance of the coach and the thoughts, and then the care they were getting. And we saw what happened. The other girls were winded, and our girls just kept going. And so the greatest thing about being on Life West campus right now, if you are a student or you're faculty that don't understand what we're doing in SPI, is that 10 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to say, you know what, we had the answer. We've had it since the school opened and Jerry Klum caught the keys from Sid Williams and drove across the country. It's been here. Now we just have a platform to be able to show it. And we're going to. So.